Greetings everybody, happy Tuesday. I hope you are doing well. It is Tuesday the 12th of May and we are deep into COVID-19 lockdown in the UK and probably also where you are in the world, wherever you are in the world. And it's nice to see we have 65 people on the call and from all over the world. It's really good to see you guys here. And interesting times. The world is going through some challenging times right now. And in COVID-19, from a crisis management perspective, we are getting to the interesting stage, as they say. The truth of the matter is that until now, we have really not managed the situation. We've survived it. And that's true for everybody. And so what's been happening is it's like when you have that initial crisis event, there's that initial overwhelming tsunami, whatever it is, there's that tsunami of shock that knocks you off your feet. And at that stage, the job is not to manage the situation, it's to survive it. It's like if anybody's been in a big wave and knows when that wave is just tumbling you over and over and over, and you have no idea where you are or where up or down is or when you're going to come out of it. The main thing is just, just keep in there, wait for that to pass by. And afterwards, you can then try and work out what the hell's going on. And so I think that within COVID-19, that's the situation we've been in so far. However, what's happening now is we're now coming to the stage where crisis management skills really are going to start kicking in. Because it is not the lockdown that was a problem. That had to be done. And there was no, we're talking about sense making, there was basically no information around it. Decisions had to be made. But now we're coming into sort of the next stage, which is the release of the lockdown, and then trying to work out how we can regain some sort of stability and normalcy and sustainability that allows our societies, our economies, our communities, our families, our businesses, our sectors to return to some sort of functionality that is appropriate to and acknowledging the challenges and the realities of COVID-19 world we're living in, but it also allows us to basically function as a society. And where we are at the moment in terms of the lockdown, we're not functioning as a society. This is not sustainable. This is not sustainable. It's not sustainable on a national level. It's not sustainable on an economic level. It's not sustainable on a family level. Myself, and I think many of us are very lucky in that we are at a certain stage in our life where we probably live in nice houses and we maybe live slightly outside from the city. Our children are grown up. But if you're a young family with 2 or 3 children living on the 4th floor of the block of flats and you have no savings and you genuinely do not know what's happening in your future, the emotional stress and pressure that puts on you is unbelievable. I've been through periods of my life where I've lived through extreme stress. I'm sure many of you have. It's not good. It makes you old. And a lot of the times what creates stress is the fact that you can't see a way out. If you can see a way out, then at least you have something to go for. The fact that you can't see a way out is what puts stress on. And it seems to me that within our crisis management frameworks that we're dealing with now, on a global, national, regional, local, community level, family level, we need to know what the plan is. We need to know how to get out of this one. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're talking about sense making. And sense making is the ability to see patterns, to see shapes, to understand, to look into the future, to see what is going to be happening. It's the ability to create an engaged or a rational engagement with the environment that you're living within, the context that you're living in. And it's an incredibly interesting subject, I find. It has a deep amount of academic work around it, but it is very much connected to how we try and create effective risk and crisis management frameworks within organizations and operations, many of which are done by people who have no idea what sense making is, or have somebody has no understanding of the academic frameworks and foundations around it. So what I want to do today is to look at how sense making is significant to us as risk and crisis managers, and some of the frameworks and structures which need to be put in place, and then some of the ways which we can create applicability to that. So it has value to you, whichever environment you're operating in. The truth of the matter is that in terms of crisis management, strategic crisis management, we have an incredibly difficult challenge that we have to face up to. We have to acknowledge it, we have to discuss it, we have to engage with it. And that is the fact that a genuine crisis is a unique event. It's probably a once in a lifetime, once in a career event. By definition, you shouldn't be having a crisis for the second time. The reason that something is a crisis, it is because it is the first time. And because it is the first time, we have no pattern recognition. We don't understand what it is. Anybody who's ever been in a serious earthquake for the first time knows that it absolutely, to use a lovely word, discombobulates you. It just takes away your understanding of what the world is, because the world is not meant to move. And then you think, well, I'll hold on to something, but everything is moving. And it is almost impossible the first time you're in one of those things to really understand what's happening. You know, you lose the sense of reality. Excuse me. And I'm sure that many of you have been in similar situations where it's like you've gone almost into that dream world state where it doesn't make sense. And that is what a crisis is. It doesn't make sense. If it makes sense, then it shouldn't be a crisis. As we discussed last week in the hierarchy of events, whether you are in a routine emergency or a major incident, those are rational events. Those are events you can engage with, you can influence, you can model, you can understand. A true crisis is not a rational event. It is a wicked problem, which we'll discuss later in the series, in its true meaning. It's non-rational. So it seems to me that the challenge that we have as crisis managers, and anybody trying to pretend or to claim that they can engage with crisis, is how do you engage with something that is happening for the first time? Now, people are already talking on LinkedIn or on various forums about, okay, next time this happens, we better be ready. That's not the clever bit. Of course we're going to be ready, because we'll have been through it before. So the question is, why weren't we ready for this? It is not a good way, though a lot of people do, it's not a good way to approach crisis management to say, well, the first time we have a crisis, I'll screw it up and get it wrong. But I'll learn a lot and I'll get it right the second time. Now, in truth, that is often how we manage crisis. The first time we do it, we get it wrong. The second time we get it a lot better. But as we've seen with COVID-19, we're getting to the stage now with these crises that we do not have the luxury of thinking, well, let's screw it up this time and let's get it right next time. So the question, the challenge we have to give ourselves as a crisis management community is, how do we get it right the first time for what are potentially inconceivable and unknowable events, using the phraseology of Lagardère, which I put into the academic work last time. And the truth of the matter is, there is nothing in this life, there is nothing in this life that we get right for the first time. If you can tell me anything that you've done and you've got it right the first time, then well done to you, and I'd like to hear about it. Because the truth of the matter is, the way that we learn, we gain capability and capacity is we do things, we fail, we then fail better, we then fail pretty good, and then we get it right. But usually it's the third or fourth time. I can show you how to, or somebody can show you how to bake a cake, explain it in absolute detail. You still won't get it right the first time. It won't be, because you don't know how to bake a cake. And then the third or the fourth time you get it right. And then what happens is, if you do it 20, 40 times, you become a really good cake baker. And then you have an understanding of it, and you can manipulate it, and you can play with it, and you can be creative with it, because you have that understanding. But you need to go through it the first time, and the second time, and the third time. And this is incredibly significant for us. And my next slide will demonstrate that. About sense making. And this is a slide that almost encapsulates the value of sense making and the impact of lack of sense making has. So let me come up onto the slide here and bring this up. And it is this, it is coronavirus's death. And if you look at the bottom line, South Korea, you almost can't see the South Korean line because it is flat. I think they've had 7 deaths or something like that in South Korea. And China is flat. And the others, look at the rate they go up. And if Taiwan was on there as well, and I don't know why Taiwan is not particularly, but if it was on there, it would be flat as well. And look at the rate of rises. And that's in, those lines represent tens of thousands of deaths, tens of thousands of deaths. Now, if there is a methodology that allowed South Korea and China to keep their death so flat, then my belief is that that methodology should be applicable within those other figures, those other lines, those other countries. Unless there is something that is specific to South Korea, maybe there's something in the genetic makeup of Asian people that means that they're affected differently. But I do not believe that is the case. I do not believe that is the case. I believe that the differential in those lines is because of effective crisis management. And therefore, what is the differentiator that means that South Korea, China, and Taiwan, if it was there, would be flattening, would be completely flat, and the others are rising at that exponential rate? It is experience. It is the fact that South Korea and China and Taiwan went through SARS in 2003. And because they had been through SARS in 2003, what that meant was that they recognized it. They recognized it. They had patterns to them. They could see it coming down the track. They could see the significance of it. And not only could they see the significance of it, but they were able to make a pattern out of it. It made sense to them. They'd been through it before. It was like one of those. And so therefore they could make very quick decisions because they had a framework of decision making and they had a range of decisions that they could use because they'd been through that last time and they'd seen what worked better and what worked less and what had changed. So they had a range of options open to them. But more importantly, they were able emotionally to be ready to make those decisions because it is difficult to take those decisions emotionally. And we've seen that in our governments, that they do not want to take decisions. And of course, the actual situation itself is not standing by while it's waiting for us to make those decisions. And so the reason that South Korea, China, and it would have been Taiwan on there was because they had been through this situation before and the others hadn't. So the question you can ask is, well, but how can you buy that experience? How can you have that experience if you haven't been through it before? And the truth of the matter is that there is an answer to that. And the answer is this: near misses. Near misses. Near misses is God's gift to the risk manager. Because near misses gives you an opportunity to practice your moves without getting too hurt. And COVID-19, whatever else it is not a unique event. It is not a black swan event. It is not an unpredictable event. It was not an unknowable or inconceivable event. It was pretty well a inevitability given the historical trends we've seen over the last 20 years. And the historical trends we have seen over the last 20 years is that pretty well every 2.5 years, there is a global pandemic scare. There is SARS, there is Ebola, MERS, H1N1, avian flu, swine flu, Zika. These were near misses. These were an opportunity for the global governmental system, governance system, health systems to say, okay, right, okay, let's use this, let's have a go, let's make sure that we can use that to practice our moves. And the truth of the matter is that they did not, because otherwise they would have learned a hell of a lot more. Okay. So the truth of the matter is that there have been multiple opportunities for countries to look at their health and pandemic management capabilities. And also, there were loud shouts coming from right across the spectrum saying, guys, we really, really, really have to pay attention to this. There's a really nice video, I'll put a link up on when I send the email out to Barack Obama. Yasmin, you know what? That's a good point you make. Yasmin, that's a good point. I'll come back to that. Good point. But there's a very nice video of Barack Obama a few years ago saying we need a national disease control center because it's coming and America's going to get hit and we need to do about it. And one of the things that Trump did was close it down. Now, I'm not making a political statement. That's nothing to do with that. It's purely from a crisis management perspective, anybody who claims that COVID-19 was an unpredictable or unknowable or black swan event is just wrong. That is not true. That is not right. We have to accept that. Yasmin, the point that you made was that they were probably not talking accurate about their numbers. In China, that is certainly true. I don't think anybody believes Chinese numbers. I think within Korea, I think it's a lot more. They're a lot more accurate, and I haven't heard anybody really talking about sort of them really fixing the numbers. We can't say the same. We can't really talk about it in the UK. The UK government for the first 3 or 4 or 5 weeks were giving out numbers of deaths, but only in hospitals, not at home, not in private hospitals, not in care homes, not in old people's homes. And as soon as they started giving those numbers out, it more than doubled. So I think that, you know, fixing the numbers is something that's universal. I don't think it's specific to any particular area or culture or background. Sean, Department of Health, let me just bring this up so I can see what people are saying here. Okay, great. Some good stuff coming in. Yeah, Hong Kong also did it, South Korea. Okay, yes, Martin, South Korea allows for an automatic, you know, they're much more able to put things in place. But nevertheless, the reason that they were able to do that was because they had a recognition. They had a recognition of what was going on. Right, so let's have a look at that. Let's have a look at that. So that basically is the thing that we're going to talk about now. We're already a third of the way through the time, so that's a good introduction. Bang, loss of sense making. Anybody know what we're going to be talking about next? If we push this slide up, what we're going to be talking about next? Well done, Chris. Gatwick Airport, absolutely. Gatwick Airport. Gatwick Airport, one of the 2 major airports in the UK. Of course, everyone being Heathrow. Gatwick's runway is actually busier than Heathrow's. It's actually, from what I've just read, Gatwick's runway is the busiest one in the world. And if you look at an airport in 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19, you would hope that somewhere on their risk register would say, drones. What do we think? You know, drones. Okay, we thought about that. What would happen if we had a drone there? And yet, what happened was that basic security patrol outside the outer perimeter saw what they thought was a drone and reported it in. And the first thing, the way that you know that you're about to have a crisis is that you don't know what to do. You don't know what to do. And so the first question in a crisis situation is not what shall we do? That is a major incident. It is the first question in crisis is, does anybody know what the hell is going on? I mean, what the hell is happening? And that's why they're saying, well, okay, it's a drone. Is it a drone? Is it a real drone? Can you see it? What's happening? Because they apparently hadn't been through one of these before. And then the second question is, well, what does that mean? I mean, okay, so there's a drone, fine. What's the significance? What does that mean? Is it dangerous? Is it armed? Is it doing surveillance? What is it? And the answer is nobody knows. So immediately you have this feeling that you have to do stuff without knowing what's going on. And the reason you don't know what's going on is because you don't have a pattern. And so you have to make a decision on the ground. And that's what leaders have to do, commanders have to do. They have to make, managers have to do, they make a decision. And they made a decision. And the decision they made was to close down the airport. Now, whether that's a right decision or wrong decision, I'm not going to judge them. They made the decision. My general feeling is, if somebody makes a decision, you back them. Unless there's a reason not to, you've got to back the guy on the ground, or the person on the ground, you back them because that's their job. They've had to make a tough decision. They made a decision. And then you deal with the consequences. Michael Addison, who's a great academic up in Liverpool, makes a really nice point. There's an incredible difference between not making a decision and deciding to do nothing. Sometimes the right decision is to decide to do nothing, but that's a decision you've made based on the evidence in front of you. That's not the same as not doing anything, because not doing anything is just pushing that responsibility down the road. And that becomes, whatever we do, we tend to learn how to do that. And then you start learning how to push stuff down the road and not take responsibilities. So the decision to say, for example, the decision to not have a plan, or the decision to say, we will wait 2 days and see what's going on. That's a decision. Fine, you've made a decision. That's not the same as not making a decision for 2 days. And so what they did was they made a decision. And my feeling is usually I will back the person who's made the decision unless there's a complete clear incompetency. They back the person who made the decision. And so what happens is you come to a situation where you have 3 days of closures of the airport. And of course, an airport is not an isolated entity. It has massive global networks associated, very complex networks, planes coming in, planes coming out, connected flights, flight crews having to be here or flight crews having to be there, luggage coming in, all sorts of stuff. I mean, you take out one part of that network, and it has cascading consequences across the world, I mean, almost instantaneously. You know, people in other countries are sort of no longer able to get on their plane because there's no landing slots available, etc., etc., etc. And the problem was not just as in COVID-19. The problem was not closing down the airport. That was not the problem. That was a decision. The problem was once they had closed down the airport, they did not have a process for opening up again. They did not have a process for opening up again. And so what happened was, the question is always, is it safe? And that is exactly the question that is being asked by governments around the world. Is it safe? Is it safe to release COVID-19 lockdown? And the answer is, no idea, mate. I have no idea. And anybody who tells you they have an idea is lying. I mean, I don't know. We don't know. So therefore, what you have to do is you have to make a judgment call. You have to make a judgment call. And the problem about COVID-19 is nobody's done it before. So we don't have a pattern of options, pattern of responses. If this was happening for the second time, much, much easier. And the same thing with Gatwick. With Gatwick, the question was, is it safe? And I'm sure many of you, I don't know if any of you have seen the film Marathon Man with Dustin Hoffman and Laurence Olivier. When Laurence Olivier it's a frightening scene, where basically is basically drilling into his tooth, a live tooth, and saying, is it safe? Is it safe? Dustin Hoffman doesn't know what the answer is, doesn't know what any answer you want. Right? And of course, when they say in Gatwick, is it safe? The answer is, well, I don't know. And so at no time are they able to say significantly, yes, it is safe, we open up, you have made a decision. And so, for example, in COVID-19 as well, is it safe? No, because it cannot be safe. That is a paradigm error. It's a category error. If you say we will open up when it is safe, that's like saying, I will go into the sea when I know how to swim. No, you've got to go into the sea, you've got to go into the water not knowing how to swim in order to learn how to swim. You can't say, I'm only going when I know how to swim. That's part of the process. That is part of the process management. And so we have within Gatwick Airport this outcome. We are not certain that it is safe to reopen the airport. Therefore, we are delaying making that decision until we have more information. And we see that classic problem of the need to make the decision with the acceptance that we do not have enough information. And therefore, it is always this dynamic tension between the longer I wait, the better information I have, the more information I have. And the more information I have, the better the decision I make. At the same time as decisions have to be made, because not making a decision or making a decision not to do something has consequences. That is not a cost-free decision, that has massive consequences. And at no time is it clear that now I have enough information. And so anytime you make the decision, you also know that in 5 minutes time, 10 minutes time, 2 hours time, 1 day time, 2 days time, I will have more information and be able to make better decisions. And when we look at decision-making in crisis context, that's a significant issue that we're going to be looking at. Because as we have seen, if you have not been through that before, as this government has not been through that before, and as a Gatwick management have been before, it is a pretty damn tough place to be in, to try and work out how you're going to manage that. And that's exactly what's happening in our lives right now. And so the question is, how do you learn to do that? And the way you learn to do that is you go through it. I cannot see any alternative to that. You can do your exercising, you can do your training exercising, you can do your tabletop exercising, but you have to go through it. Let me ask you a question. Who here is either one of 3 children Who here is either the third child or has 3 children? If you are the third child or have 3 children, let me know if you are. John, you got 3. You got 3. Mark, okay. Have 3 kids. Okay, so you know. Okay, good. Fantastic. You have 3 daughters. Sean, good luck with that one. Fantastic. Good stuff. Is anybody the third of 3 children? Anybody the third of 3 or more children? Because the only reason I ask that is because you may have some emotional impact from what I'm going to say next. And I'm sure there's emotional scars that may, I have to give a warning here. So those of you who have 3 children, you remember when you had your first baby and you brought him or her home from hospital? Your life changed and there was this thing that you guarded with your life. And it just changed you forever. And then one day, one evening, one night, maybe 3-4 months later, during the night, your child, your darling boy or your darling son or daughter goes cough, cough, cough. And your wife goes, or your husband goes, your wife, usually the wife goes, oh my God, the baby's sick, the baby's coughing, get the car, call the doctor, get the car now, get the car, we go to the hospital, go to the hospital, let's go, because baby coughed. Oh. 2 years later, you are blessed with child number 2. You come home from hospital with this bundle of joy. A couple of years later, child has a cough and goes to his mum and goes, cough, cough. And the mum looks and goes, oh, you got a cough, darling? Yeah, have a biscuit, have a biscuit. No big deal, have a biscuit. A couple of years later, child number 3 comes along. Has a little cough, goes, cough, cough. And the mum goes, I'm busy, go away. What do you want? I'm busy, go away. Because that is learning, that is sense making, that is recognition prime decision making. And you can't buy that. You can read every book, you can go to every class, you can look at every video, but you have to go through it. Do people recognize what I'm talking about there? Do you recognize that? We've all been through that. Okay. I mean, for example, just as an example, when my third child, my son, had his 21st birthday, I wanted to do a montage of photos. I didn't have any. I didn't have any pictures of me and him. So I had to use the kids from the first son, who was born a few years before him, and put it into the montage. So I didn't have any pictures of me and him. It was actually, it was mortifying for me. I mean, so, but that's the way it goes, okay? And you can't buy that. That is how you learn to do it. And this is exactly the same with crisis, okay? So I'm glad that we share that experience as well. Mangulch fire, 1949. This is a standard work on decision-making, crisis decision-making, and what goes wrong. So basically what happened was, and I should have reread the paper, which I meant to, and I just didn't have time, so my apologies. But I will put the paper up. I think there was 13 people, I'm not sure, 11, 13. You'll see if I'm wrong about that. And again, my apologies, I should have reread the paper. Basically, California fire jumpers. So what these guys are very experienced. They jump into fire. So forest fires, they get taken in, they helicopter, they parachute down, and then they start fighting the fires. Incredible job, incredible job. And what happened was in the Mangulch fire in 1949, the fire got out of control. And again, I should look at the numbers, but I think there was 13, of which 11 died. And the reason that they died was because the fire didn't do what they thought it should do. And they lost their sense making. They could not deal with it. And they panicked. And all of their training went out of the window. And the sign, and you will recognize this, many of you recognize this, the sign that they were no longer in control was because they dropped their tools. And everybody knows you do not drop your tools. You know, whatever your tool is, whatever it might be, you don't drop it. You know, you keep with you. And they dropped their tools and they ran. They basically tried to run away from the fire, which anybody who's been in one of those things knows you don't run away from a fire, okay? And the fire, I mean, you know, they were in bushes, you know, 3 meters tall. So they were trying to get through incredibly dense, tough undergrowth, and they just lost it. And so Carl Weick wrote about that in 1993 is my guess. Again, I'll look it up. and wrote about that. And that has become the standard paper, looking at sense making and how that impacts us. And of course, there's been a huge amount of work done since then. But one of the things that he said was that they basically were not able to make sense out of the fire. The fire was just not behaving as it should do. And the only two people who survived was the oldest, most senior person, most experienced person, who did exactly what the textbook says you should do, which is you get down, you cut some stuff down, you create a break, and then you allow the fire to go over you. You stay there. And him and one other who he grabbed survived. So it's not that they could not have survived, it's that they lost their sense making within that. And that's what happens to us. And that's a sign of a crisis, is we lose our sense making. So having said that, the question now is, well, how do we make sense of it? How do we make sense of it? And there's a school of thought, there's an academic area of study called recognition primed decision making, RPDM. My guy called Gary Klein. And again, I will send you some of his work. It's actually pretty easy to read. He's a good writer. But basically, recognition primed decision making says that what we usually do is we do not actually make decisions as the textbook tells us. The textbooks will tell us that when we make decisions, we consider 1, 2, 3, or 4 options, and then we try and work out which will maximize our benefit by choosing any particular one based on the criteria we use. And therefore, we will choose one that maximizes our benefit, maximizes our utilization. And Gary Klein says, no, that's not how it works. It may work if you're trying to work out which tie shall I buy, or which car shall I buy, or do I want to walk this way or that way down a path? That's okay, because those are stable, static situations where you can gather information and make a comparative judgment. But in the dynamic context of a crisis event, that's not how you do it. And what you do is very, very much like these firefighters. When these firefighters are walking or moving towards that fire, they are not thinking what the textbook tells them. That's not what they're doing. What they're doing is they're saying, that looks like one of those. And they have that archive of memory in their head. And so they are building a picture. They're building a picture, what Gary Klein calls it a rich picture. They're building a picture based on the information they have. And it is not just the information, it is the meaning with information. So they can take limited information and they can extrapolate. They can build, just like paleontologists, who study dinosaurs, can take a piece of bone that size and go, oh, and they will build this massive dinosaur. This is what a dinosaur looks like, because that's what its third toe bone looks like. And therefore it looks like that. So they can take a small piece of information and extrapolate. Whether it's true or not, I've got no idea, because I don't know what dinosaurs look like. But as a modeling situation, it's accepted as a valid modeling process. And what these firefighters do is exactly the same. So when they're moving towards that fire, they're not just seeing information, but they are making sense. They're creating a picture, they're creating context. And what is beautiful is, and what is beautiful, what is impressive, and what is useful to us, is that they are not just building a 3-dimensional picture. They're not building about what is. They're looking at what will be. They actually can project into the future. And what that allows them to do is to say the situation as it is now, but the situation in 10 minutes, or in 3 hours, or in 4 days, or will be this, that, and the other. And when you're in a crisis, you lose that ability. So, for example, one of the things that we are looking at very much, from my perspective, observing the UK government, which is obviously what I'm closest to, but governments all over the place, but certainly the UK government, I do not see that sense making into the future. I do not see that they can see what lockdown or lack of lockdown or release from lockdown means in 3 months, 6 months, a year, 18 months, 2 years. And in my opinion, they should be looking at 18 months to 3 years, because to get businesses back, to get supply chains back, to get trust back, it's a long-term event. It's a process. And yet it seems to be, the question is, do we release this week or next week? Can it be by the end of May, in 2 weeks' time? And so their timeline is really only what's in front. Can we do this? And they do not have that Gary Klein sense-making, that recognition prime decision-making looking into the future. Because really, right now, the problems of lockdown we should have a plan, and it should be something put into place, and you learn, and things happen, and we see how it goes, and you react to that and have a sensitivity. But, and I hope it's happening, I don't think it is, but I hope it's happening, maybe it is. The questions about what does this mean 6 months down the road, or a year down the road, and 3 months down the road, that should be being discussed now. So, for example, children's education has been incredibly impacted. And for many children, that's a very significant part of their life. And there's no question about it in my mind. Those children who are 7, 8, 9 years old now, in 70 years' time, will be talking to their grandchildren and saying, I remember in the spring of 2020 when COVID-19 closed down the world, and I did not do my maths paper, or I did not do my English paper, or I did not do my exam, and my life would have been different if it wasn't that. People's lives are going to be changed because of this. And I do not see the understanding of what this means deep down over the next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. Because that's really what recognition prime decision making would give you, an understanding of that ability to look into the future. And so we can, does that make sense to everybody? I mean, is what I'm saying, I mean, does that reflect, I mean, does that have value to you? Do you understand it? Does it have significance? Does that describe the reality that you're living in? Okay, good, it makes sense, good. Then again, there's nothing particularly clever about it. And when you hear it, you go, yeah, that makes sense. But the fact that we can sort of put it into a structure allows us to understand the world. Understanding is very, very, very much about patterns. You know, that's what it is. You know, people who understand stuff see patterns. You know, whether it's music or dance or chaos or traffic. That's a good example. Hi, Susanna. Good to see you. I just seen you there. Susanna Murray, good to see you. For example, I don't know if any of you have ever done advanced driving programs, which are very interesting. If you ever have a chance, highly recommend it. But people have the wrong idea. I mean, advanced driving is not about handbrake turns and J-turns and skid pans and reversing through the cones. That's the fun stuff. That's to get you to pay the money. What advanced driving about is basically two things. And the first thing is read the road ahead. And so the first thing your instructor gets you to do is to look further ahead, look out, move forward, see the rhythm, see the pattern of the road, understand how the road is moving, understand how the road feels, see where the information is, gather that information. And what happens is very quickly you start realizing, wow, look at that. You know, you just see so much more. And because you see so much more, you can then achieve the second part of advanced driving, which is smooth, to be smooth, you know. So it's not about speed. Speed's not important, it's smoothness. So you want to have a smooth movement through the traffic, through the road. And you can only do that if you look further and further ahead. And the reason you can do that is because it's of interest to you. Okay, you gather information around you, you make sense of it. I don't know about you, I'm sure that many of you have this experience, but when I go out with my wife on a Sunday shopping, which of course I love, absolutely, because this is on video, so I'm going to say that, you know, I'm on record. I love shopping with my wife on a Sunday afternoon. Bring me great pleasure. But what happens usually is at some stage in the afternoon when I'm about ready for my coffee, she'll say, stop it, stop doing it. So what do I do? She says, you're looking. And of course I am looking because it's what I do. And I'm sure that you look as well. But, you know, I see different stuff than she sees. You know, I see the kids, I see the drug dealers, I see the undercover policeman, I see the security bloke, I see the pickpocket, I see all those people. I see the spotters, all those people. I see other security, I see the close protection teams. She doesn't. But she sees stuff that I don't see. You know, she sees stuff for the kids or the family, which is probably much more significant to our family than the stuff I see, but I just don't see it. But the reason I see it is because it has interest to me and I can see patterns and I have the experience. And I'm not looking for it, but I see it because it is there and it is absolutely clear to me. Just like, you know, somebody stood up there and just said, it's me. And it's exactly the same thing with what we do here. Okay. So that ability to see patterns allows us to see into the future. It allows us to model what we're doing. It allows us to have a much more sophisticated understanding of what is required from us. And I just like this last example here. David from I think you're back in Geneva now. David, great to see you on the course. David Horobin, head of security, head of crisis management at the Geneva Center for Security Policy. If any of you haven't yet seen the Geneva Center for Security Policy, GCSP, go on to Geneva Center for Security Policy. They've got great webinars, great teaching stuff, really doing good work over there. And David, it's great to have you on the course, on the webinar. So the problem is we can't expect our leaders to have RPDM, recognition prime decision making. No, you're right. So they should be talking to us. They should be talking to the people who understand it, because the reasons they are failing is not because of COVID-19. It's because of basic, simple, pretty fundamental crisis management failures. I think this is the final slide, just the final main slide anyway. Let me just bring this up. I like this one. And so what happens is recognition prime decision making. Crosswords are a good example, because crosswords, I don't know about you, I like crosswords. I enjoy them. But the thing about a crossword is that it's not the clue. The clue, if you haven't done them before, it's difficult. So you get a clue. You're not really thinking just about the clue. You're thinking about every other clue you've ever done in your life before. And that's why people who do more crosswords are better at crosswords, because you recognize stuff. So let's just see if anybody gets this. Anybody know what that is? Anybody got the answer? That is a crossword clue. It's my favorite crossword clue. Any ideas what the answer to that is? 2 words, 9 letters and 4 letters. Any idea what this is? 2 points. You get extra 2 points. Extra 2 points if you know the answer to that crossword clue. Okay, we have silence from silence from our audience here. Neil Emery, odor. Of course, you were observing that odor leap absolutely comes out. Any ideas? Any ideas on the on my clue? Nobody coming to me on that one? Absolute silence. Absolute silence. Okay, I shall tell you. The answer to the clue, and it's a brilliant clue, is scrambled eggs. And hopefully you're smiling and you're going, oh, bloody hell, of course it's scrambled eggs. But the thing about it is if you just look at that without any background information or never having done crossword before, it just makes no sense. But of course it is. But you know, the reason that you can do that is because you're not just looking at the Kylie. That's 2 marks away. That is 2. You are 2 marks down, minus 2 marks for that. You know, because you recognize, and that basically is how we live in the world. We walk through the world not just looking but comparing. We build pictures in our minds. We build pictures. We build stories based on our previous experience, and that is exactly what we do in crisis management. And so here we come to the end already for our 45 minutes. I'm glad it's 45 minutes. We did 30 minutes last week, and clearly 30 minutes was not enough. 45 points, 45 minutes seems to be about right. I'm looking forward to. I'm really enjoying this series. I do a lot of webinars, but I'm really enjoying this one. The idea of sharing some academic work it always brings me pleasure. I hope it's been useful to you. I will put up a message. I'll send you emails. I'll put some stuff up on the drive just to let you know. Just to finish this off, just to go back, we do have our library. Please do go into our library, and we do have our coronavirus campfires, and we do have our global training office. Emirates is still supporting that. We run sort of 1 week programs, certificated programs, regulated programs. If you're interested in that, I'll send you links. You're very, very welcome to come on in. And we'll be back again next week. Next week, we'll be looking at communication, complexity, and the benefit of effective information management, which is critical to everybody. And then after that, the week after that, we'll be looking at C-suite leadership, and we'll be putting together a crisis management playbook. So please do spread the word. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you for your time and attention. And all being well, I will be seeing you all next week. So thank you, everybody. Be safe. Feel free to send me emails. Feel free to put some stuff up on LinkedIn if you'd like to do so. Always happy to see that. And then I'll see you next week. Thanks a lot, everybody. Stay safe.